Survivor's ready! Direct from Hobart, it's time for you to hear those so-called experts from Survivor Oz talk about another reality show, despite the fact they always said they wouldn't ever talk about Survivor. It's The Amazing Race Oz, and here's your host,
Colin Hilding. Hello everybody, welcome back to The Amazing Race Oz for The Amazing Race Canada Season 3, maybe better than Season 2, maybe not, we'll find out at the end of this 2-episode recap. We're covering a couple of continents here. We're going to start in India and then go to British Columbia and then all the way to Edmonton. Covering a lot of ground here. It should be a good episode. I am Colin Hilding, and I'm joined by two guys who love The Amazing Race and love the Chevy Silverado. Introducing first the Chevy Silverado's #1 fan, Noah Groves.
Thank you. Still looking at the truck, but I think I'm more of a BMO cashback fan, though, to be honest.
Oh, well, you messed it up because I was going to say, and president of BMO Canada, Jared Lubick.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Hopefully I can give BMO a little bit more promotion than Opie and Simi did in the very last episode.
Let's talk first about the first episode we're covering here, which I've lost track of the numbers, but I think it's episode 10. Last we checked in, we were still in India, so they find out right away that they're off to Penticton, British Columbia, a place I've never been, but it looks absolutely incredible. I've been to BC, haven't seen anything like this there, so it made me want to go there. But the first thing they get to do when they're there is they get to search for clues inside their Chevy Silverado, and then navigate a maze of Chevy Silverados, using all the great gadgets that you can use inside of a Chevy Silverado. Do we have anything to talk about on this? Was there anything memorable other than that some teams really sucked at this and others just breezed through it? Noah?
There's not too much to add, except for the fact that this is actually a challenge stolen from The Amazing Race Australia Season 2, I believe, is that this was the very first challenge of that season.
I knew it seemed familiar. Yeah, I didn't connect the dots on that. You're right.
Yeah, almost to the... I'm not sure if it was a Chevy, whatever the car is called, but it may have been, but this was definitely the same challenge. And the only notable thing was Simi and Opie versus Jesso and Jeannie, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, was pretty funny.
Yeah, and Opie, we finally learned that he has at least one talent in the race, that he can navigate truck mazes. So
drive?
He can drive. As long as he's not around water, he can drive.
I don't have my license.
I put in my notes here, it's like, Opie, I can't swim, I can't wrestle, I can't dance, but I can do a truck maze. I'm going to say, well in advance of both of these episodes we're covering today, I'm really starting to like Simi and Opie. I know not everybody is, but I'm on board with Simi and Opie by the end of this 2-episode stretch here. Jared, did you enjoy the truck maze at all? Would you have been good at this?
I thought it was okay. I don't know if I'd be great at it. It'd probably depend if I was up against Gino and Jesse or not. I think if I was versing Simi and Opie, I probably could have driven out there faster than they did. It wasn't really a challenge that separated the teams that much, and I think that was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, after this, we do have a major separation of the teams, with probably, I would argue, maybe the hardest roadblock of the season. So they basically have to do wakeboarding, and in this wakeboarding, they've got to be able to stand on the water, which some people really struggle with even getting out of the water. They need to do a trick, and they need to do a jump, and it looked really difficult to me. I've never done anything like wakeboarding or water skiing or anything. Have either of you wakeboarded or water skied before?
I've water skied, but I don't know if you would call it water skiing more than flopping around on the water, struggling to even stand up. So it is very difficult just to even get up onto the water, let alone stay up there and go off a ramp. I've never wakeboarded, but I assume it's quite similar, and it's very difficult.
What about you, Jared? You're pretty athletic. Have you ever done anything like this?
I haven't. We actually have like a wakeboard center close to where I live, but I've just never been.
Well, I don't think anybody on the Amazing Race Canada had either, because this was a real struggle. I can't remember whether it was Nick or Matt who did this one, but whoever it was, he couldn't even get his torso out of the water. Jesse,
bad challenge to be a wrestler on.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, bad challenge for anybody. I mean, Jesse, who I thought, well, if anybody's going to do well at this, maybe it's Jesse. Jesse did a face plant right onto the ramp. Like, this was the most painful challenge to watch since episode 1. It was crazy. What did you think of the
Lalani was bleeding.
Lalani, we need to do an entire episode just on Lalani's injuries. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a person take that kind of beating. Overall, what did you think of the roadblock, Noah?
It was fun. There was some funny moments. I love Brent and Sean underdog dominating once again. It's always so funny watching them do challenges. They're just such a great comedic team. And yeah, imagine if Opie did this, they'd still be out there. Like, I don't wakeboard, I don't swim. Yeah, it was pretty fun. Nothing much to it other than watching them do it and fail, but it was fun.
Well, I think, as sick and twisted as it sounds, I think if you can watch people really be in a lot of pain on The Amazing Race, it brings a little bit more enjoyment.
Yeah, Mike getting kicked in the balls by a zebra.
Yeah, exactly, going back a season. So we want a little bit more pain on The Amazing Race. We want these people to suffer more. But I loved the roadblock. Jared, what did you think of this roadblock?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think it was a really tough physical challenge, and it was kind of interesting, like you mentioned, to see Brett and Sean kind of have this underdog win at that challenge. And there were some great moments and quotes, and I haven't written down who said what, but one of my favourites was, a wakeboard's the one you paddle right.
I wonder if wakeboarding is going to become a major sport on TSN now. They've got so much branding going on all over the place here that I want to see just
Too
the
much
Amazing
curling for that.
Yeah, between the curling, like we could start an Amazing Race Canada sports channel after this season. So there's a good idea. I also noticed that, I don't know if either of you noticed that Nick and Matt's boat guy, was he stoned or was he just like the most out there person ever? He was laughing every time. Yeah, like he was laughing. Every single time they fell, he's like bursting out laughing. The guy was nuts. When Lalani crashed, though, like honestly, my reaction was, it took me a few seconds. Like logically, I'm thinking, I know if somebody died on the race, they wouldn't be airing this episode. But it took me a few seconds to think, is she dead? It was so painful to watch her.
Yeah, that was pretty upsetting.
Overall, I liked this episode, but let's be honest, I don't think I'm going to get much argument on this. The detour was kind of a bust. Do we have any disagreement on that?
No.
We have Brains versus Brawn. Brains, you just have to find some bottles, you launch a couple of potatoes, and you stack some pallets. Brawn, you toss some onion bags, you flip a tire, and you and you go across the monkey bars.
Worst theme park ever.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the Penticton theme park. Let's crawl through some manure and do the monkey bars.
The monkey bar.
Is there even a point to asking which one we would do or which one was more enjoyable? Noah, do you even have an opinion on that, or is it pretty much give or take either?
Definitely give or take, but I feel like I would probably suck more at the Brawn one just because it didn't look like much, but that would probably be quite difficult to be like with that wheel and everything going on. But yeah, it was pretty boring detours, really.
Jared?
Yeah, I thought they were both fairly basic. I probably would have picked the Brains one just because I wouldn't have had to lift stuff.
Well, you got to launch potatoes. Potatoes weigh a little bit, right?
True, but I suppose at least if you get it wrong and that comes back and hits you in the face, it's not as bad as a watermelon.
Yeah.
And the mud run at the end made absolutely no sense to me. Like, why was that even added in? And the double U-turn kind of annoyed me in this episode. I'm getting a little bit over the fact that every single U-turn has to be a double U-turn, and just like little things, like the fact that you can U-turn somebody when you've been U-turned but you haven't done your second challenge yet, like I don't think that should be allowed. And then there was just really annoying moments throughout it. Simi with the monkey bars, which, I mean, you would find like a longer set of monkey bars at like a 5-year-old's playground than what they had that was like, 5 rungs or something. And the fact that she was allowed to climb over it and that was deemed as, yes, she's completed the challenge, I thought that was an absolute joke.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting... First of all, we'll talk about the U-turn a little bit. It is an interesting point that maybe they should have to complete both sides before they U-turn, but I mean, the double U-turn is probably just there to create more suspense. I don't think it really worked in this episode because it was obvious one way or the other. But the thing with the monkey bars is interesting. You know, when we talked with Mike and Rochelle, I believe that they mentioned that they used the camera phone for selfies. You know, that they would use this to take pictures of flight information and everything. And I'm pretty sure it was on the interview. I don't know if it was on or off the air that they were mentioning that, you know, you kind of ask questions when you get to these detours, much like we hear in Survivor, that, you know, okay, can I do this? Can I do this? And sometimes it's just, can we get a loophole around this? So I think that's probably what Simi did, where, you know, she's like, we just have to make it across the monkey bars. Like, okay, nobody said you couldn't climb over, you know? I wonder if all the other teams were watching this thinking that that's something they should have done afterwards, but let's talk about the U-turn specifically here. Noah, do you agree? Do you think that double U-turns are pretty much uneventful now, or a little bit less interesting to watch? Or what? How about the idea of having to complete the challenges before using the U-turn?
Well, I've never actually thought about that, but that does make sense. It's like you get to U-turn someone, but you're not even done. Yeah, the double U-turn essentially is just a single U-turn, because the second person to get U-turned is almost always the person who comes in last. Mm-hmm. So it's more just delaying another team, but then they just delay the team behind them, and it just works out exactly like a normal one, which it did here. And as soon as they used it on Dejan and Lolani, we knew that was the end of it there. Yeah, I think if they did it after their challenge, that could make some more suspense, but then at the same time, all the teams could just go past them and there could no longer be any other teams to U-turn at this point because they had to complete another challenge. So I think it makes sense that they would have to complete the challenge, but I'm not sure about the logistics of it, though.
Yeah, I think it could work one way or the other. Like, if you were to have to, like, let's say you see you're U-turned, and then it's like, well, you got to go back and do the other side now. You don't know who's doing the other side, so maybe that makes it even more difficult, you know, because if it's just when you show up at the U-turn and it's like, oh, we've been U-turned, well, we already know these teams are behind us because of the last challenge. Having to finish it, not knowing maybe all the other teams did the other one and you're still in last, it could make things more difficult. It would be an interesting experiment to try out, but I do agree that there's pluses and minuses on either side. This episode, it really didn't matter, though. You know, Dejan and Lolani, they were so far behind. I wrote in my notes here, I love the moment where Dejan was saying, like, that, you know, oh, maybe I would have been better off doing this. And it's like, Lolani almost died half a dozen times. She's bleeding, she ripped her suit, she has shards of jagged plastic embedded in her skin. There may have been a better candidate for this challenge. May have been? Wow, that was the understatement of the century. Having said that, let's talk a little bit about the argument, because I know this came later in the episode, but we won't really see Dejan and Lolani much. The argument that came about when he was saying, maybe I should have done this. When he first said that, I was kind of on his side, and I was thinking, well, he's not really saying anything bad. You know, it's simply saying, maybe it's apologetic what he was saying. But the argument really did go from there. Again, if it's morbid to say or not, I don't know, but was it fun to at least have Dejan and Lolani go out on an episode where they were really exploding on each other?
I think it kind of went from Lolani beast mode to Lolani bitch mode and like Dejan dick mode. I don't think it was fun, just for me personally, because this team has been known as the X's, but they really haven't been like doing the fights that people would suspect from the X's team. Mm-hmm. They've been quite cooperative with each other and dominated a lot of it. And Yeah, it was kind of entertaining, but it was upsetting that this was their downfall, like the big X's fight, when that's not what their story was about throughout the entire season. So it was a little bit entertaining, but also quite disappointing in my eyes, and it was so frustrating with those monkey bars as well. It's like, just go over them! Obviously, her hands were quite sore, but it was just so frustrating seeing her fall, and like quite funny sometimes when she fell on the first rung, like just dropped straight away. But yeah, frustrating but slightly entertaining.
Jared, what did you think about the Dijon Lalani blow up, and do you think that this kind of soured them a little bit as a team on the end of the season, or was it at least what we expect for them to go out on?
To me, it kind of soured the whole experience of them as a team a bit, just because I know that they were never going to end up back together, but you could kind of just joke that maybe that was going to happen, and this completely like blew that idea out of the water. Because that's usually the story when you have a team of exes. It's we're going on the race to see if kind of we can work out our relationship and see if we could end up together. And more times than not, the answer is no. They're just not compatible. But this, like, it just took that completely out of the thing. It got really aggressive and kind of over the top. And by judging by what they said, like that had happened in like previous episodes too, and it just hadn't been shown. Mm-hmm. So I think even maybe if that had been kind of like threaded into a few more episodes, then it wouldn't have felt as kind of out of place and just a bit of a turn off. But yeah, I just thought it was a kind of a really. I suppose it's better to go out like that than to just be completely invisible, but as just a team that I'd really liked the whole way through, it was just a really kind of like horrible downfall for them.
Yeah, I do like that we got to see really what these characters are known for, the arguments. And again, I know it sounds mean, but there were some funny moments in there. Like the moment where Dijon was saying, like, come on, seriously? And she's like, she just looks at him and goes, learn to swim. Like, it wasn't even the context of the conversation. It's like, that's her go-to insult. It's like, if he ever is bothering you, just tell him, learn to swim. Like, it was such a mean thing to say.
What we couldn't see on the edit, though, was Opie off to the side of the camera.
Yeah, Opie, I said I can't swim. I'm not talking to you, Opie.
It's not always about what you can't do, Opie.
But I think I'll agree with both of you. I don't think that it was the argument that killed it for this episode. I like that we got to see their characters and them butt heads a little bit. It made for some entertainment in the episode. But it was how they went out. You know, when the final scene is them saying, yeah, you know, I don't even know if we're going to be friends after this. You want to see at least them have that final scene where they're like, you know what, I know we lost our patience with each other, but we'll still be friends after this, and I'm glad we did it. I am happy to say that, you know, seeing some of the interviews they've had since the episode aired, they are still friends, just they said they're not really as tight as they were, or they're not liking each other as much as they were before the race. So a little bit of animosity, but not that bad of an ending for them.
They better make up, because we need them for Amazing Race Canada All-Star.
Yes. Oh, there are so many teams on this season that just need to come back, but they have to.
Well, if they did Canada All-Stars, would you rather Dijon and Lalani or... I can't even remember their name now. Alan and Audrey. Which one out of those two teams would you rather back? Because you can't have both of them.
Well, I mean, you could. But, yeah, that's a tough one. I think that Elaine and Audrey had the good ending to their storyline. I think there's still more to tell with Dijon Lalani, so I'd probably go with Dijon Lalani.
I'd agree with that.
It almost feels like we talked about the end of the episode just because of Dijon Lalani here, but there is a little bit more that went on. We had the mini John in the mini Penticton, BC, or whatever that was.
John was on fire this episode.
Yeah. Did we like the whole... I thought it looked like it was a very challenging challenge, too. So,
I would hate it.
I would have hated to do it, too, I agree. But was it entertaining to watch, at least, compared to the detours that we sat through?
It was funny, but I swear they didn't even look like John.
Yeah, I know.
Little figures. So, yeah. But it was funny.
I think they probably did just raid the entire set they had there. Like, okay, let's find any male one that's wearing Amazing Race colors, and let's put a dash of red paint on its head, and we'll say it's John Montgomery's. I will say there was a contest running after that episode aired where you could win the Mini John from the episode. I entered and I lost. If anybody out there wants to sell their Mini John, I will pay good money. Just get in contact with me.
What was it when Brent and Sean thought he was like a... What was it? They thought he was a speed skater.
Like,
look for the skating rink. John was a speed skater. I was wondering.
And he trolled them at the end. Like, I've got some bad news for you.
I was in a speed skater. I loved how he was in a skeleton, but I love how he called it. I was in the Skeletor. Like, that's a cool way of saying the skeleton. Yeah. Jared, what'd you think of Mini John?
I thought it was great. These are the type of challenges that I look forward to in the race. Looking for Mini John, rolling cheeses, show jumping rabbits. That's what you want to see. The only thing that frustrated me, and this is all like these little things with this episode, was that I swear 2 teams found the same like Mini John, and I was just like, that shouldn't be allowed. They should have all had to find kind of different versions of him, but I swear like 2 of them got the one on like the ice skating rink.
I don't know which 2 teams you're talking about, but I know which one you're talking about. There was one Mini John that looked the same. I wonder if they were able to put them back, or if it's something like if there's more than one team there, they're not allowed to put it back or something. But yeah, one more thing, just before we finish on this, the final standings, we have Gino and Jesse in first. We'll kind of breeze through this. Brent and Sean in second. I don't think any of us predicted them to do this well in the race. They're getting better every week. Nick and Matt slip back into their traditional spot of third. Simi and Opie in fourth, and Dejan and Lalani in last. Before we talk about the end of Dejan and Lalani, do we have anything to say on the standings of the teams that made the Final Four here?
Yeah, stock standard for like the whole of the rest of the season. Simi and Opie last, and the other 3 rotating.
Jared, anything to say on the top 4 teams?
Yeah, I think it was a good bunch. I think Brent and Sean were definitely kind of the surprise package out of that group, along with Simi and Opie. Especially because this episode too, they did a speed bump. Am I right? With the wine bottles. Yeah. See, and they breezed through that so fast. It was on the screen for like 10 seconds, and then they were done. So like they had an extra task, and they just really just got through the legs so quickly.
They also took the detour that wasn't really a match for them too. Like they regretted it as soon as they started, but they could have switched and they didn't. They took the bronze. So real credit to Brent and Sean. There was a pee stop in this episode too. Jared, did you want to mention that?
Oh yes, Sean and his argument over his bladder not being psychic was definitely a highlight, and I love those moments when it's just those little things that teams just stop to do, and then they get overtaken. Like Keisha and Jen, classic, when they stop to go to the bathroom when they're at the
squatting in the river.
That was great.
I think what Brent said about Sean was that he had the bladder of an old man or something. It was a nice little character segment for them.
And then he vomited.
Yeah, and then he threw up. He basically does those 2 things back to back. He urinates and then throws up. That's all there is to him. One thing I know is going to be controversial in this group, but I liked Simi and Opie this week. I think that Simi's really fun, and I think when Opie's not stressed out and complaining, he's a fun character too. We had an Opie victory dance in this episode. Like, does that count for some points? Please, somebody, the Opie victory dance.
Someone needs to make a gif of that. That was embarrassingly funny.
And he had his big woo! Like, we got an Opie woo!
Oh, that dance. That's like the dorky dad. Like, no, Dad, stop.
I can totally see that, too. Simi's watching this with all her friends and say, oh, I'm so humiliated. Jared, are you turning around at Simi and Opie at all?
I am budging a little bit. I still think that they're just the team that's the nice team, and I think you see that especially in kind of the next episode. But I mean, they have had some moments. It's kind of just a shame that they didn't have more throughout, because I feel like it's just too little too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, really quickly before we move on to the second to last episode of the season, let's look at our rankings for Dejan and Lalani. Where did we place them? I'm going to say right off the bat, Rossi is completely out of this. He had them in 10th place. Let's see. I had them in 2nd place, which I'm sorry to say also has me out of it. And it looks like we have Kristen had Dejan Lalani in 3rd place, so she's out. And I am happy to report that for the first time ever, we have a 3-way tie because Noah, Jared, and Alex all had Dejan Lalani in 5th place.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
That's, 2 points for all of you?
That's awesome.
Full points on that.
And unlike Jared, I actually predicted that.
Yeah, you saw the preseason, and then like Alex, you've watched them throughout the season. Plus, I'm gonna claim this as a victory for Noah because Alex actually predicted that Duncan and Lalani would be 5th place.
Duncan.
That's why he stopped watching the show this season because he was disappointed Duncan wasn't on more.
Duncan
Yeah, 2 points all around, which at this point puts Jared well on the lead at 5 points. Noah at 3, Alex at 3, Kristen and Rossi at 2, and me still at 0. Which, if you heard our Brian and Cynthia interview, even the contestants on this season are mocking me at this point. So, we'll see if I do any better as we head to Edmonton. I've been to Edmonton once. I didn't get to see as much of the city as we see in this episode, but it's absolutely one of the best cities in Canada. We started off at the City Hall interrupting a wedding, which was kind of awkward for some teams. I don't know if they got that most of what you see on The Amazing Race is role-playing, but who was it? Does anybody remember who it was that was like really, really timid about it? Like, I don't know if I should do this. They were talking to their partner.
Yeah.
Who was that?
I think it was Simeon.
I think Gino and Jesse as well had like a similar thing.
Yeah, it's clearly
random.
These people have they just gotten married over and over again, or
Who has a wedding in the middle of public like that with 2 guests?
I have a feeling that CTV put some ad out there saying, we're looking for an engaged couple that wants to get married on The Amazing Race Canada. We will pay for your wedding. And then they showed up the day of. They're like, you're not allowed guests because we have all the camera crews and everything there. And you just stand in a hallway and we're going to interrupt you 5 times throughout this episode.
You've got to be divorced between each team arriving and then you have to get married again.
Yeah, we're at City of the Hall. You've already got the Justice of the Peace. We will perform the wedding and the divorce between every single
so
take.
Random.
Yeah, maybe they just needed to show City Hall. Like, I wonder in some of these if they show up at the city and to get the permit, they're like, well, you got to show our City Hall. You got to show our role play of the drunk people in the saloon or whatever. But one thing that we did have, which I think we all are happy is back, is the blind detour. So we have paper, which is recycling, and plastic, where you dismantle an old TV. Thoughts on the detour in this? Was it good to have a blind detour, or was it not even relevant in this episode? And what did you think of the detour challenges themselves?
No thoughts. Yeah, the blind is done better in the American version, and you never thought I'd say something was done better in the American version, but it really was nothing to do with this, and the challenges were kind of... It's not like they were boring, but they just weren't that exciting. It's not like, they could have ditched that. It was just another challenge in the episode, but probably the least exciting aspect of the episode.
Jared?
Yeah, I was glad the blind detour was back. I think it had some issues in that the words were kind of fairly close to what it actually was, which I think obviously they need to do, but I think if you've got a blind tour, you kind of want to keep a lot more mystery about it. So you would probably try and put the title as something that throws the contestants off a bit. And I think also having them at the same location, it wasn't really kind of a risk picking the wrong one, because you could always kind of switch and then you just go to the other place next door type thing.
Yeah, the blind detour in theory is really good, but as you said, there are some things working against it in this episode, and the biggest problem was that it wasn't relevant on the race because there was nobody going, I had no idea it would be this, you know? So I would have rather they just edited that out of the episode and just had the teams picking. But overall, this was better than the detour in episode 10 that we sat through. A couple of funny moments as people were smashing the TV and then kind of trying to pass it by, and they're like, no, that's not going to work. And again, total credit to Brent and Sean, who are quickly becoming my last-minute prediction on who to win, as they were smart enough on the recycling one to just go for the things that they thought weighed the most, which was really good. Or that was... Did they do that on... I can't even tell if this was my note for this or the Petro-Canada one, but no, it was definitely this. Yeah, they're smart on both of them. Brent and Sean are geniuses. That's what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, boring.
Idiot savant, I would say.
The face-off returns after this. I thought face-off, it was an interesting idea earlier in the season. It didn't quite work. There were some problems. Overall, I liked it much better this time. I thought they worked the kinks out better. It created a little bit more of a gap for teams, which is good when you have so few teams in there, but not too much that, you had people quitting because it's a water challenge or whatever. But what did we think of the face-off where they basically curled?
I really like Face Off. I think that, not the film, well, it's alright.
Face Off, the movie, is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But that's not what I'm talking about. I almost think that could be a staple where every leg of the race has a face-off in the middle. Like, it provides more, maybe, strategy and more of the teams interacting and can stall teams. I almost think that should be a part of the Amazing Race, is the face-off is in there just like the roadblock and the detour. In saying that, I'm not sure about a face-off in the Final Four, because that could really shift things if you're no good at curling. And then, like, you were doing really good, and then at the very second last leg, Final Four, you couldn't curl, and you keep getting stalled by the other teams beating you, and then you lose. So I think maybe it's a better thing to use at 6 or something. But the challenge was it was curling. I liked Brent and Sean and channeling their grandfather or whatever it was. I just love how they're like the underdogs who just continue to dominate in these things. So, it was pretty entertaining. I enjoyed it. I liked Gino and Jesse getting quite frustrated with it, which was quite good. But we also didn't talk about the taxis.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that because there's more of that coming later on. That's half of the episode here. But Jared, quickly, what did you think of the face-off? Do you like curling? Have you ever seen the sport before?
I have seen curling, and I would love to do it. I think if I had to pick a Winter Olympic sport to go professional in it, that would probably be my best bet. I thought it was good. I had a lot of... When it first popped up, I thought, oh no, this is an absolutely terrible idea. Just having it, like Noah said, so late in the season. I thought in the episode, there'd been so much tension in the episode. I'm like, you're going to completely ruin that and rip it up. And I think this worked only because the roadblock was difficult. If you had had a roadblock that the teams had kind of got there and got through it straight away, this would have completely ruined everything. So I like the face-off. I think it should happen kind of when there's more teams, and I think also it should nearly always be towards the start of the episode before a detour or a roadblock. So put that maybe even as like the very first task, then split up the teams a bit by doing that, and then allow kind of catch up throughout the rest of the leg.
Yeah, what I really think improved on the face-off this time was that I suspect when they create at least a face-off that they are not going to allow a team to go into it being incredible. Like, this isn't going to be, okay, here's the dancing face-off or the vomiting face-off. Something that one of the players is going to have an obvious advantage on. Because none of these teams seem to be familiar with at least playing it at all.
I like how it kind of brings in challenges, so it's almost like Survivor, because then, like, we had the kayak hockey, and then it's more, rather than small tasks, it's more challenges, which I think is quite cool for the Amazing Race.
Yeah, and unlike the kayak, we weren't going to have 3 of the teams just quit because they don't like the water, and that was the improvement this time. I was waiting for Simi to say, like, I don't do ice or I don't curl, but
Well, let's hope he doesn't do ice.
I do like how he's like, there's zero curling in Nigeria. Well, thanks for reminding us there's something else that you don't do, Opie. But Simmy's gracelessness.
Don't do a face-off.
Simmy was hilarious to watch in this. Again, another reason why I'm liking them. Jared, you've had the quote before, and if any of the teams are listening to this, this is not meant in a derogatory way at all, but it's just complete fun and what makes the race entertaining. But your famous quote, Jared, where it takes a special team to suck really bad at something, and Simmy and Opie on this were just hilarious to watch because they did well despite looking like the most awkward curlers you've ever seen. I really enjoyed the curling on this. We only saw a little bit of it, but the sport was showed properly. Nobody quit this time. And it was kind of funny to watch them on the ice, so I was happy with this overall. Why don't we talk about the Cabs now? This is the majority of the episode, and I will say that if you remove the detour from this episode, this would have easily been episode of the year, maybe one of the best Amazing Race episodes in the last several years of any franchise, just solely based on cabotage. The title of this episode is quoted in this, and it's not a one-off thing. This all started with who was the first one to steal? Brent and Sean? No,
Gino and Jesse.
Gino and Jesse. Yeah, Gino and Jesse, which is then followed. They steal Nick and Matt's cab, which is followed by the confusion of Nick and Matt and Simmy and Opie walking down the road. Who knows where the cab driver was supposed to pick them up at, and arguing over which one came first, and Nick and Matt getting in the one that was ordered by Simmy and Opie, and then Simmy and Opie get in the cab, and they even see that it's Nick's name that ordered it, and then it comes back again later on, where Gino and Jesse steal another cab. Like, this was absolutely insane in this episode, and I was waiting for penalties to be laid out at the end, but there wasn't any. Am I wrong, or have people been fined in the past for taking other people's cabs, or is it simply if they take their bags out? Jared, do you have a clarification on that? Noah?
I'm fairly sure it is to do with like touching other teams' bags and moving their bags. Because I feel like I can remember that from like teams like taking another team's bags out of the boot and kind of putting it by the side of the road, and then that caused a penalty at the end. But I think if the team's bags aren't in the car, then it's kind of all fair game.
Okay.
Which they should have left their bags in the car.
Yeah, well, that would have been an idea. Overall, what did you think of all of the cabotage going on in this episode, Noah?
Oh, I thought it was really entertaining, but also quite frustrating. And just, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, surely this is against the rules. Why is this happening? But I think, yeah, this is Canada. There hasn't been too much drama in this season amongst the teams at all, really. So it was quite fun to have like all this going on. And then funny to see Nick and Matt do the exact same thing that they were just bitching about happened to them. So that was quite very ironic. And really left Simmy and Opie in a bad spot. But I guess if you're in the Final Four, that's what you got to do to win. But I'm not sure if I'd have the heart to steal someone's taxi like that and then keep going on. But I thought it was quite entertaining and really made it one of the most noteworthy episodes of this season. So close to the end as well.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the reasons why I love this episode so much, because they had a little bit of everything to make this just a wide open race. You know, you have the face-off, so things are being shaken up there. The challenges were really hard to predict what was going to happen, and then with all the cab theft going on, Gino and Jesse were basically cab bandits in this episode. Like, they couldn't be stopped. They were on like a crime spree. The episode was so hard to predict. I just loved all of the drama going on, and the fact that the only team who didn't steal any cabs are the ones who got burned in the end. So it shows you the crime does pay, I guess. But Jared,
is that the message of this episode?
That's the message of the Amazing Race Canada. That's why the cops are gone so early, because they had this ultimate message they wanted to send there.
Yes, that's what this season of the Amazing Race, the moral is crime pays.
Yeah, that's right. Jared, does crime really pay? Why don't you tell us? And what do you think of all the cab theft?
I think it does. I think it does in the race and as a viewer as well. It was so much fun to watch and just so interesting to see what happened because it was already such a tense episode, just heightened kind of by the challenges and then throwing in that face-off. And then to have this happen as well, like everything was so tense. You could tell all the teams were like really on edge. And it was just that case of Simi and Opie, the nice team, just being too nice. And that is what cost them the race, essentially. Yeah, I thought it was great. I loved when it initially happened, and then Nick and Matt taking a cab, and then just complaining throughout the whole episode still when they'd done exactly the same thing. And Brent and Sean just staying out of the drama the whole time. It was just excellent.
After all the cab theft we saw, or in the midst of it, as it basically came up after every single challenge and stop that they had to make, we have another quick product placement, which was fun for me just because it reminded me of a show that I'm sure nobody else outside of Canada is familiar with, but I'll try anyways. We have the Petro-Canada shopping spree, where you have to go in there and spend 25,000 Petro points, which I don't actually have like a membership at Petro-Canada, so I'm not sure what this is. So I don't know how much that's actually worth, but this reminded me of a show, and have either of you seen a game show called Supermarket Sweep?
Yes!
You've seen it!
No.
Was it a... Oh. You got me excited for a second. It was like my favorite game show as a kid.
Sorry.
Jared, you've never seen Supermarket Sweep?
No, I have not.
Oh, it is... It's a Canadian game show, but I think it was sold to a few countries outside of Canada. Where basically the first half of the game show is you... And this has nothing to do with The Amazing Race, but just... I'm telling people out there, look for it on YouTube if you can. It is the funniest game show you'll ever see. The first half, you're just answering questions, and there's so much product placement in the show. It's like, you know, these trivia questions like it's Jeopardy, and you get points based on that for time. And then the end of the episode is the teams go out there with however much time they've earned, and they're running around a real supermarket with an audience there cheering them on, just filling their carts. And whoever fills their carts with the most amount of groceries in money gets to keep the dollars that they won in groceries. It is an amazing show. Everybody go out and watch Supermarket Sweep. One of the worst hosts you'll ever see on TV. One of the most awkward, stereotypical hosts ever. But this was Supermarket Sweep, so I'm just putting that out there.
Sounds thrilling.
It is amazing, and I am going to send YouTube clips to all of you, just so you could see what I'm talking about. I had one episode of Supermarket Sweep, because it's still in reruns, like, here in Canada. This show's from the I don't know, I was watching reruns when I was younger, and it's probably like the early to mid-90s, these episodes, but they'll still air in reruns every single day here. It is an amazing game show. I love this. Did anybody else who has not seen Supermarket Sweep even care about the Petro-Canada shopping spree?
I was just excited to see the Petro-Canada headquarters. We've talked about it so much. It's like we're finally going to...
Well, it's not really a headquarters. It's a gas station in Edmonton.
Well, the Petro-Canada hub.
Yeah.
Random gas station, but yeah, it was pretty funny. The woman was quite funny working there, and I loved Nick and Matt just not following the rules and this doesn't count. This doesn't count. Yeah. This doesn't count. That was quite funny. It was a fun challenge.
Jared, what did you think of the shopping spree?
I thought it was funny. It was quite pointless. Especially because it just seemed like just chuck as much stuff in your basket as you can, and as long as you get over like a certain number of points, then you're fine. Like if they'd made it
only snacks.
more difficult with having to get between maybe like a smaller like a range of things, so they had to think about it a bit. But I mean, I think that would have kind of just detracted from the fun of the challenge. So yeah, I thought it was good. The Nick and Matt moment was great, and then also I'm pretty sure Brent tried to put sunglasses in their cart, and Sean wasn't having any of that.
What were the items that Nick and Matt kept having rejected? Because I don't remember any rules being stated earlier on, and I kept trying to see what it was they were putting in there, but I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I can't remember. But they did say it had to be drinks and snacks, which kind of like why?
Oh, okay. By the way,
why would it have to be drinks and snacks?
I do have a confirmation on here that Supermarket Sweep had minor success in the United States, but was a much larger show on the Canadian version. dates all the way back to 1965, the original version. Supermarket Sweep Oz
Back in
coming
the
soon.
heyday of the supermarket.
That's right. So I'm the only one who really cares about this, but after this we have a roadblock, which I'm sure everybody enjoyed. Role playing in a Western saloon raid. I don't know what you would call it. These role playing challenges are always fun when they actually have to get into character. I'm going to say right now, way better than the season 2 one where they had to role play. They were in a martial arts movie and they were just running in spot on a dock with a camera pointed at them. This had full costumes and everything. Noah, did you like the Old West town?
Not as good as season 2's Rockstar Challenge. That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was really funny. I enjoyed this. It was kind of really random, but Brent and or Sean, I can't remember who's who, but one of them got into real theatre mode there. And just the accents that people were doing was so funny. Like Opie, I don't do accents. He was like, Gino and Jesse's accent, like some old like medieval thing or something. It was just so bad. Yeah, this kind of reminded me of the episode 1 challenge, like being a sports presenter. Yeah, this was probably my favourite part of the episode, besides maybe Cabotage. It was just so funny watching them do the thing and all the guest stars in there. So I really enjoyed this.
I'm going to say if we ever get Brett and Sean on this show, we will hear a quote of, "You talk too much buffalo breath," from them. That was my favorite quote of the episode. Jared, did you like the role-playing saloon raid?
I loved it. I thought it was the perfect roadblock for this episode, to have kind of all these physical challenges that were kind of, I don't know if I'd say demanding, I mean curling, but it was just completely different to everything else that we'd seen. And after such a tense leg, to have like a mental challenge where teams had to remember stuff, I thought was just really smart kind of production and planning for the leg of the race.
Yeah, I thought this was a great way to break up the episode. Like, this was one of those rare instances where I don't think the producers really knew what type of episode they were going to have. Often you see that they get these legs where maybe they're in a certain city and they want themed ones. Sometimes you can tell they want to create a lot of tension, and, you know, obviously with the last leg, they wanted it to be painful, so the physical challenges were very physical. And in this one, I think they want to create a fun leg, and having all that cab theft going on, which was very heavy in this episode, mixed with this, actually made it more entertaining, because it wasn't so heavy throughout it. So I love the breakup of this, and this challenge. Like, it needs to come back. Just the lines these people were speaking alone were so funny. And as you said, the accents, just amazing. We had one final cab theft, and eventually we check in at the pit stop where John's Edmonton girlfriend is an Edmonton Eskimos cheerleader, it looks like. He's always got his girlfriends on these legs. Other than Alex Trebek, I don't know if we've had any men, but yeah, we have the pit stop and a big yell of "Congratulations!" from John. Brent and Sean, first place team. Let's talk very quickly about Brent and Sean. Noah?
Well, firstly I'll say I'm slightly, even though I was rooting against, well, not rooting against, but I didn't want Sumi and Opie in the finals. Have to say I'm quite disappointed it's an all-male finals and that we're going to have a male-male winner again after the first two. That's kind of disappointing. Yeah, I was so thrilled that Brent and Sean won the final leg, because I was fearing that they've done so well, but maybe this will be their downfall this just before the final. But they dominated this leg. Hands down my favourite team after Nick and Sabrina were eliminated. I just don't know if they can win it, though. They would be such a great underdog winner, and they're quite deserving, even though they did get a non-elimination. But they're a really competitive team that no one expected from episode 1, watching them vomit because they missed a boat. So they've come a long way. So I really enjoy them. Hands down, my favourite team going into the final. I'm rooting for them. They provide so much entertainment, and if they don't win, then they need to be back for Amazing Race Canada or All Stars because they're just so entertaining. Go Brett and Sean, win it, win it, win it.
I think we've said that about almost half the teams on this season. That just shows how strong the cast is. Should be said also that Brent and Sean, this is their second first place finish, which when you look at our predictions at the end of the season, none of us saw that coming. Not even close. Nick and Matt, second place. I honestly thought that Nick and Matt were done this week. It was just the way the episode played out. I thought that they were going to get burned because of the whole...
Does Jared not get to talk about Brent and Sean?
Oh, that's right. Jared, do you have anything to say on Brent and Sean?
Not much to add. I'll try to keep
Okay,
it
that's
short.
enough. Now let's talk about Nick and Matt.
Valid.
No, go ahead, finish.
I was just really happy to see them in the final. I think if there's a team that you kind of couldn't afford to lose, that was kind of the one team that you just, if they'd have gone home, it would have really kind of upset the balance of the finale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited that they're in the finale, and I don't think, as I said, any of us predicted they'd come anywhere close to this, and they are the ones I'm rooting for going in the finale. We'll cover that in a second, but let's go to Nick and Matt now. I thought they were going to be last. I thought the cab theft was kind of, a storyline for them. It was going to show how they got burned, and maybe Gino and Jesse are the villains. Plus the fact that they finally achieved their first place leg and then slipped back again. Like, I was 100% convinced they were gone this week, and they pulled off second place. I'm happy they're in the finale. I think they've earned it. They've been probably the most consistent team if you look at their finishes from week to week. Noah?
They've been kind of my middle team. Like, they've never been my favourites, but I've still enjoyed them along the way. And I always thought there was a possibility they could make it at the finals. I'm not that excited for them. If they won, it would kind of just be like, there's sometimes where I really dislike them, and then other times where I do like them a lot. So they're just that stock standard middle team, and if they win, it's going to be okay, but I'm not particularly rooting for them to win them.
Jared?
Yeah, I think they're okay. I think my love for them has kind of waned a bit throughout the season. I think they started off really well and had kind of lots of funny moments, and they still have kind of a couple, but I think probably just because it's got more competitive, we see a little bit less of those lighter moments from them. But I agree with you. I thought that they were going to go home this episode for sure. I thought after the cab stealing, and then I just thought they're going to lose in the curling as well. I mean, everything kind of just pointed to them kind of getting cut short, but I'm glad that they didn't.
And finally, Gino and Jesse. Again, like, they've had more first place finishes than anybody, but they've also had a lot of close calls, where this is now the, I think, third time where they've been just on the verge of elimination. So I don't know. Do they go in as the favorites or not, Noah?
Yeah, they're probably going to win this season, which will be really disappointing because it's just last season repeat. This is the worst possibility if they win the season, just because they are the stereotypical, strong younger guys who win the seasons like this. And I think they are the favourites to win in terms of who we think will win. I liked them at the beginning of the season, just when there was lots of teams, like they weren't my favourite, but it's like, they're alright. But as it gets closer and closer, I start rooting against them more and more. And just because it's such an obvious win for them to win, so I would be thrilled if they were third place. Not that I want to deny them of money or anything like that, just because they're such an obvious team to win, and they were alright at the beginning, but as the teams dwindle, they kind of become more and more annoying, so I really hope they don't win.
I don't know if I would say that it was... I mean, again, this will be the third all-male team to win if they... Well, one way or the other is going to be the third all-male team to win, but if you look at the first season, I mean, as much as underdogs as you can get, I mean, it was an old man who was sick and his son, and last year Mickey and Pete were definitely Mickey and Pete were definitely like a strong male team, but they weren't really front runners, until it got close to the end. I would say if anybody, it was the twin brothers, Pierre and Michelle. Like, they were the strong male team in the season, I think. But yeah,
Hockey
I'm okay with the all-male final three because I think these are different teams than we normally get. Gino and Jesse, obviously they're the type of team, as you call it. What was the phrase you used? Douche bros or something?
Yeah, they're the douche bro team.
Yeah, but again, I think they go against that stereotype because they are likable. They're not really that cocky and arrogant, and they've been on the verge of elimination several times. So I'd be okay with any of these teams winning. Jared, do you have any thoughts on Gino and Jesse?
They're my favourite of the three teams left. I hope that they do kind of pull off the win. And I just think they've been interesting to watch, just kind of with that whole yo-yoing of front of the pack to back of the pack. And I thought that was kind of a really good way for their second last leg to end kind of nearly going home being kind of in that elimination spot again. I think they've proven that they're not kind of one-dimensional. They're not just good at those physical challenges. Even that's where they excel, but I think they've shown kind of moments where they've made smart decisions and kind of done okay in the mental challenges. So yeah, I'm really backing them for the win.
And even though, if they're not the front runners to win this, let's just call it already, on the Petro-Canada Fuel Your Favorite Team contest, so they can win gas for life, Gino and Jesse, they've already won this. 107,000 votes. Next closest is Dana and Amanda, who knows why, at 34,000 votes. The most, and again...
If they win, they've already got gas for life. So,
yeah.
Gas for 2 lives?
I don't understand the voting, and again, it's nothing against these teams, but when I say, why are Dana and Amanda in there, it's just because they've been gone from the show for so long, and when they were on the show, we didn't really even see a lot of them. So, I don't understand the voting for these things. We got Neil and Kristen in third, and then we have
with the hockey girls.
Yeah, which again I've had many complaints about that. But your top three, Neil and Kristen, are in there, and again we haven't seen them since the first few episodes, and it wasn't all positive we were seeing them. Nick and Matt, Brian and Cynthia, Simi and Opie are after that. Brent and Sean, they're only slightly 13,000 votes. Hamilton and Michaela. Nick and Sabrina, Dijon Lalani, Susan and Sharon, and Elias and Max at the bottom with only 1,000 votes.
Sabrina third last?
Yeah, the fourth last. They're headed
the
to
stars of this season.
Yeah. Only 2,800 votes for Nick and Sabrina, so I don't know if there's going to be consolation prizes. I'm putting it out there. Nothing against Neil and Kristen and nothing against Dana and Amanda, but get some of the teams out there who really did a lot on the race, that we saw a lot of.
In the season.
Yeah, exactly. Ones that we can remember this far in. Before we go, do we have a prediction? First of all, which team? We've already said which one we're rooting for, but just a reminder, who are you rooting for going into the finale, and who is your honest prediction will win? Noah.
I'm hands down rooting for Brent and Sean, but I think it will be Jesso and Jeannie, the winners, Nick and Matt second place, Brent and Sean third place, unfortunately. Jesso and Jeannie.
Jared?
I'm going for Gino and Jesse, but I think that Brent and Sean will win.
I'm going to agree. I think Brent and Sean are taking it, and that would probably be the one that I'd like to see win, too. I don't know what it is. With the Amazing Race Canada, not so much with the US version, but with the Canadian one, I'm always rooting for the least likely team to win, or the more underdog team. So I'm going to go Brent and Sean, which actually means that, considering we all started this season thinking Brent and Sean were one of the first teams out, Brent and Sean are favorites to win going into the finale. Let's really quickly...
It would be such a great underdog story.
Yeah. Again, it's not just about, they shouldn't have been this good. It's the fact that a lot of these things they're succeeding on, even they know they shouldn't be good at, which is what makes them an even better team. Let's talk really quickly about...
One thing that's dampening them is they did get a non-elimination, which didn't stop the season 1 winners.
Yeah,
we got
again,
2.
I'm not one who really hates on...
Bring them down.
Yeah, I'm not one who really hates on non-elimination people surviving unless it hits them multiple times, then I'm a little bit more upset about it, but I'm not going to be bothered if they win it all. Simi and Opie, before we go, it's their last week. Noah, we talked a little bit about them, but finishing off this episode, what do you have to say on Simi and Opie as a team overall?
I didn't enjoy them. I think we called them the nice team, which they were. They weren't causing drama or anything like that. They were just running the race. But being the nice team, while it's good to be the nice team, it's also boring television. I just think I was wanting them to go around 8th or 9th place, and they just kept surviving while my favourite teams went. So I was not a fan, and I was not upset to see them go. I feared that they may make it into the finals and pull off a scientist, like the Candy Scientists, and take a surprising win. So I'm glad that didn't happen. They seem like probably the nicest team on the race, but I just found them boring and annoying with all the I can't do this, I can't do that.
Jared?
Yeah, they were alright. I think I will, in some ways, miss the negative I can't do this moments of the week. And it was they're surprising in the fact that nobody kind of really expected them to make it this far. And then throughout legs, they have this weird habit of getting into first place somehow. Like, it's usually at the midpoint of the leg, all of a sudden, Simi and Opie are in first place, and it's kind of like, how did this happen? It doesn't make any sense.
And they switched a lot, too. Like, a lot of the detours, no other teams really switched nearly as much as they did.
Yeah, exactly. And they never really kind of maintain that first place, like front of the pack towards the end of the episode, but it is surprising how often they were up there throughout the episodes.
I've already said at the beginning, I'll say it again now. These last 2 episodes made me a Simi and Opie fan. And it wasn't that I wasn't a fan before, but they were kind of the team I was indifferent on. Nothing against them. I think that part of the problem with Simi and Opie is we've been talking so much about, Dejan Lalani, definitely an all-star team. Brian and Cynthia, definitely an all-star team. Brent and Sean, an all-star team. Nick and Matt, an all-star team. Simi and Opie just kind of, they don't really compete with those bigger personalities that we've had on the season. But in these last 2 weeks, I have completely come around on them, and I would have been okay if they made the finals, and I would have been okay if they won, because I think that Simi's really energetic. She's very fun to watch, and Opie, we're going to remember him one way or the other. And I'll at least say, as much as we did have a lot of negative Opie, not negative in terms of, being like a downer, but just, it was always about what he can't do. The last 2 episodes, he definitely rose to the challenge, and he was fun to watch. So I'm going to miss Simi and Opie a little bit. Finally, our predictions. Simi and Opie. Going into this, Jared, who just at random picked these teams, and Kristen just at random picked these teams, so I'm just going to come right out and say it. Kristen nailed Simi and Opie right at 4th place. Jared is leading with 5 points, Kristen with 4, Alex and Noah with 3, Rossi with 2, and I still have 0. So
you can't win.
There is no possibility at all that I win this now.
Unless you get all 3 right in the final episode.
Yeah, well, let's see. What were my predictions for the final 3?
Yeah, what are our final 3 predictions?
Gino and Jesse in 3rd, Dejan and Lalani in 2nd, and Dana and Amanda were my number 1 pick.
So you can't win.
No. Jared, I think your luck, you may have gotten lucky here. You have Nick and Sabrina in 3rd. We know that's not happening. Hamilton, Michaela in 2nd. But you had Nick and Matt number 1. So you have a real shot here. And
7 points, mate.
We'll just cover you, Noah. Hamilton, Michaela, 3rd place. Dana and Amanda 2nd. Gino and Jesse number 1.
Ooh.
Now, the real question is, does Kristen even have a shot here? She has... Oh, no, we are in trouble. She has Dejan Lalani as her 3rd, but then she has Brent and Sean 2nd and Gino and Jesse 1st. So, yeah. Jared, do you have any words to say? Like, get into your pro wrestling mode here. Be Nick and Matt for a second. What do you have to say to Kristen going into the finals here?
Bring it. You used random.org, I used my brain. So if I win, then I think random.org is out of business.
There you have it. Jared's putting companies out of business, and he says bring it to Kristen.
I actually think they're the sponsors of Season 4.
Yeah, there will be lots of sponsors on Season 4.
Random.org!
Any
You
hashtag
must use Vocaroo to make a personalized message.
Vocaroo? We should have sponsors on this. Like we must have given some business out there to Vocaroo at this point. Vocaroo,
When
please
it
contact
sponsor
us.
Get in touch.
We love Vocaroo. We record using Vocaroo. We attempted to record using Vocaroo at least once, and it may or may not have actually made a recording.
I'm Noah Groves, and I'm on Survivor Odds, and I use Vocaroo. There you go. You can use that on your website.
We have your spokesman right here. Quickly, a hashtag for Simeon Opie. I have a feeling I know where this is going, but Noah?
Hashtag, I can't use Twitter.
Jared?
Hashtag, I don't do hashtag.
Oh, and you guys basically did exactly what I was going to do, so I'm just going to do hashtag, I didn't make the finals. Goodbye, Simeon Opie. We will be back, hopefully in a couple of days to finish recording this. Noah, are you excited for the finale?
Well, yeah, it's an exciting week. Finale and premiere of the American version. So a lot of Amazing Race this week.
All right. We'll hopefully have you back to talk about both. Thanks for being here today to record this one.
Thank you, and a shout out to my girl, Natural Born Lady Hustler.
Yeah, that's right. The other star of the Amazing Race Oz. Jared, do you have any shout outs you want to
I'm Natural Born Lady Hustler, and I use Vocaroo.
And I support Amazing Race Oz. Jared, any shout outs you want to give to your girls out there?
Not that I can think of, really. Shout out to the Australian Davis Cup team. Thanks for losing. That's unfortunate. And yeah, looking forward to the finale. Looking forward to the next season of the American Amazing Race. Bring it on.
I have a shout out to a girl out there, and it is not my wife, Jamie. Shout out to Pamela. I am Colin Hilding, and I use Pamela for Skype to record on occasion.
Pamela.
But not today. Thanks so much for being here.
Sometimes.
At least once I have used Pamela for Skype. Please send us money. And like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, listen to us all week. We're hopefully going to have at least, maybe, fingers crossed, one more interview for you before the season is over. And then maybe we'll actually get some of these teams on after the season. We'll be back for the Amazing Race Oz finale for Amazing Race Canada Season 3, and 2 days after that, we have to watch the Amazing Race Season 27 premiere, and also, don't forget, the Amazing Race... Not the Amazing Race, the Survivor Cambodia premiere happens on Thursdays. 3 back-to-back days of fun here in the Oz family. And also listen to our great interview we just had with Brian and Cynthia that we had go up over the weekend. It's definitely worth a listen. And until next time, we will speak to you on the plains while we record using Vocaroo and Pamela.